There is a Hebrew word in Isaiah 6 that no Bible has ever translated literally. Not because they couldn't, because they were afraid. It means to be cut off, to be silenced, to be destroyed. Isaiah said, "I have ceased to exist." This wasn't fear. This was the holy. Watch now on Daily Revelation.
The smoke is already there when the story begins. There is a Hebrew word in this chapter that no translation has ever dared to render literally. And when you understand what it means, you will never be able to read this story the same way again. It is not rising slowly. It is not curling upward with theatrical patience. It is filling the temple the way water fills a sinking room. From every corner, through every crack, dense and absolute and alive. Uzziah has just died, king of Judah for 52 years. The man who held the world together for more than half a century has finally let it fall. And Jerusalem was breathing that specific kind of fear that only appears when this happens. The cedar beams above the holy place are invisible. The golden lampstand has disappeared into the white. And somewhere inside that smoke, a man named Isaiah ben Amos is standing on stones that tremble, not because of an earthquake, but because of something far worse. The sound comes before the vision, a sound that Hebrew describes as the sound of those who cry out to one another. But the verb is not call, as someone calls across a street. It is kara, to cry out, to summon, to proclaim with the full weight of a herald announcing the arrival of a king. And the stone beneath his feet is not merely trembling, it is coming apart at the thresholds. The amoth, the doorposts, vibrate at a frequency no human architecture was ever built to absorb. And then Isaiah sees the throne, high and lifted up, and the hem, only the hem of the one seated upon it, fills the entire space below. Now, I need you to slow down with me for a moment.
Because what happens next is where almost every reading of this scene takes the wrong path. We paint Isaiah with his hand over his mouth, eyes wide, body shaking with what we call fear. The ordinary fear of a man who walked into the wrong room at the wrong moment. Someone who stumbled into something dangerous and wants to step back. But Isaiah does not say he is afraid. He skips fear completely. He skips being overwhelmed. What he reports is something the language of emotional experience cannot contain. Something that arrives already beyond the border where feelings live, in a region of being that has no name in any modern language. And what makes this visible is the Hebrew word he chooses to describe what happened to him. The word is Nidmeti. If you have never heard this word with its original weight, let it land now. Nidmeti. It comes from the root dama, and that root carries 3 separate meanings stacked like layers of geological rock. The first, to be cut off, separated, amputated from life, the way a branch is cut from a vine and simply stops being a branch. Now you have that in your hand. Hold it for a second. The second reading moves in a different direction. Silence. Not just any silence. The specific silence that follows the ceasing of a sound that had been continuous. The silence after the music stops. The silence after a heart stops. Isaiah is not describing what he feels. He is describing what he became. What ceased to be. 2 layers. 2 would already be enough to change everything. But it is the third reading that no one expects to find at the bottom of this root. To be destroyed, reduced to nothing,
brought to an end in the most final sense Hebrew poetry knows how to construct. Not silence as pause, silence as termination. Not separation as distance, separation as extinction. Isaiah did not say, "I am afraid." He said, "I have ceased." And now you need to understand who Isaiah was when this happened, because this is not incidental background color. A rabbinic tradition preserved in the Babylonian Talmud in the tractate Megillah identifies the prophet as a relative of Uzziah himself, a man of the court, a man of words, someone whose entire identity had been built from language, political, prophetic, liturgical. Words were not merely his tools, they were his substance. They were what he was made of. And the first thing that happened when he saw the throne was that every word abandoned him. Not some words, not his public words, all of them. The way fire takes papyrus, without negotiation, without remainder. And in that total emptying, Isaiah does the only thing that reveals what that verb means at its spiritual depth. He does not describe what he feels. He describes what he became, or rather, what he ceased to be. Only after this emptying can you understand why almost every children's Bible illustration, every stained glass window, every sermon preached in a comfortable sanctuary misses the point. Not because they are lying, but because they are describing the him. There was a version of this story preached every week in thousands of places, and in that version, Isaiah has a touching spiritual experience, feels conviction of sin, and volunteers for ministry. That version is technically present in the text, but it is the surface of the surface.
The verb he chose as the description of consciousness in contact with the sacred does not describe someone who became humbled. It describes someone who ceased. If you have spent years inside the tradition without ever feeling what Isaiah is describing, I want to ask you something directly. Did you really stand before the text of Isaiah chapter 6? Or did you stand before a translation of a comfortable interpretation of it? There is a real difference between the two. And this verb is where that difference lives. This architecture, the verb that describes what happens when a human being touches true holiness, begins to appear in places you would not expect to find it. In the next video, I will show you exactly where it reappears in the Psalms and why that changes the way you read every lament, not as poetic ornament, as a structure of consciousness the text inherited from this moment, in this smoke, before this throne.